So, Steve, Joe Manchin came out yesterday. I think he likes attention. I'll say that. But he had a little gaggle of reporters around him, and he was asked again if he's reconsidering the Build Back Better plan. Colin, let's let it rip what Manchin had to say.
On BBB and what your conversations have been with the White House?
There's been no conversations after I made my statement. I think it's basically, and I was very clear. I feel as strongly today as I did then that the unknown with the COVID, here we are. We can't even go out. I've got a 95, M95. I see all of you do. And so there's different concerns that we have right now that we haven't had for a while. So that's a concern. Inflation's still a concern. It's still over 6%. And the geopolitical unrest that we have, and I think the president's been doing a yeoman's job trying to talk to Putin and calm things down to let him know where we are. So these are all challenges, guys, and this is all expensive challenges. So that's where, Jake, on that there's been no conversation.
I love the last part, that talking to Putin costs money. That's a new one. But, putting aside for a second that the Build Back Better plan, if it passed today under, some compromise between Manchin and them, is obviously completely insufficient. To me, it's a joke. If I was a progressive in the Senate or the House, I wouldn't vote for it personally. But putting that aside, I wanted to ask you, he's now using the coronavirus, the latest coronavirus outbreak. I mean, it's valid. Yesterday, according to Johns Hopkins, 1 million cases, which is a record in America. He's using that as an excuse why we can't spend money. He's using inflation as an excuse why we can't spend money. And now something Putin. Let's start with the coronavirus. Is the Omicron surge a reason that we cannot expand Medicare to vision, hearing, dental, that we can't have universal pre-K, that we can't have increased elderly care, that we can't have actual climate proposals? What do you say to that?
Well, as far as the healthcare side goes, we have been woefully unprepared in training up a breed of nurses, doctors, friggin' orderlies, hospital. We've not staffed. We have not planned for a world that would require or would even have available the real resources to address the needs of society. So there is some reason to believe that without a nice transition to where we would have those resources. I mean, you see right now, the hospital, now part of this could be gouging. Part of this could be savvy business administrators trying to get COVID dollars that are available. But you look at Hogan in Maryland right now, and they've declared Maryland a state of emergency. We're hearing 6-hour waits just to get tested in the hospitals for COVID. We're seeing a lot of delays built in. Now that could be artificial, but from what I'm seeing, we have been in lockdown basically, even though we're opening up. We have been in this now for 2 years. We're coming up on 2 years in the next couple months. And in that 2 years, you have seen a lot of burnout, a lot of absolute depression and complete and utter fatigue in our healthcare workers. And there's a tremendous amount of I don't give a fuck by a large segment of the population that is just focused on they don't want to be in lockdown. And I understand not wanting to be in lockdown. But I also know now people walk by you in the hallway and Omicron can be right up in your snout, you're infected. It's that contagious right now. And we're still sending our kids to school every day. So the more we mix, the more we're in close proximity with one another, the more the hospitals are going to be filled, and the less those natural resources or the real resources, or the human resources will be available. So to Manchin's point, if we don't have resources, there's going to be rationing, or there's going to be huge amounts of wait and delay, and there could be cost increases, et cetera. That's a separate thing than this inflation bug that he's pointing to right now. That inflation bug is a direct result of two things. One of them is a normal supply chain thing that, is still an issue. But the other one is a more serious one, and that is gouging. You know, the Saudis, the price, the fuel, that is all gouging. That is not a matter of, oh my God, it suddenly became so much more expensive to refine oil. No, that's not it at all. They know they got us over a barrel, so to speak. This is not some God-breathed thing. This is absolutely somebody saying, let me break out my red marker, scratch the price there, and put up here a new price that raises it up. That's all it is. There's nothing about that that says we got to do that. And with so many people quitting the workplace, okay, I mean, a lot of businesses don't have the real resource, the human resources to continue to function in a way that would allow them to do it in an efficient way, in a predictable way, in a good way. And so, yeah, you're seeing some inflation. This is a very real thing. I mean, you know, he's pointing to something real, but he's not pointing to the cause. He's pointing to something real and saying this real thing is directly tied to this other real thing, and they're not tied together. So,
well,
to
this
your
real
point,
thing, this real thing is these companies are knowingly price gouging, using
absolutely,
inflation as the excuse. They don't have to be charging what they're charging, and they are hitting, I mean, in some cases, record profits, citing, well, we got to do this because inflation. But I mean, there's plenty of reporting out there that they're not just passing off costs to
that's right.
customers; they are price gouging.
You're damn right they are, and that's exactly what they're doing. I mean, this is what always happens. This is what happens with the Alex Jones world back in the day. He would say something so inflammatory, but then he would point to something legitimate, something that was, it's true, but the causation is not the same thing as the correlation, right? The correlation that, yes, these two things are happening doesn't mean that they're tied together. It's like taxes and spending, right? They are not tied together. And so, but they use that as, hey, we don't have any money, or hey, there's inflation or whatever. The average person sadly doesn't know any better, Jordan. And that's where this problem really kicks in. Guy like Joe Manchin has clout because Jane and Joe Public don't know any better.
Right.
And he can say this stuff with impunity because the media carries that water for him too. And then the business leaders come onto the talking head shows that everyone plugs into, and they repeat it too. So it doesn't matter if it's real. It only matters that people believe it's real. And that's what's happening